Thank you for listening to the Flying High Club podcast in association with the World Aviation Festival 2024 in Amsterdam. We've been delighted to be able to bring you this, and it wouldn't have been possible without our sponsors, Flyware. Flyware are experts in aviation and travel space, providing tech outsourcing services focused on increasing revenue and making your operations more efficient. Without their support, we wouldn't be able to bring you what we are bringing you today. And more importantly, what we need you to do is, if you want to find out more about Flyware, please check the caption below for more details. Thank you for subscribing and keep following us. Keep flying high. Welcome everyone to the Flying High Club. We are at the World Aviation Festival 2024 Amsterdam, and again we have brought you the best. So we are really delighted today to have one of our top guests that we've been trying to get on the podcast for a long time, and this is what opportunities like this do for us. So before I get into the podcast, you know the usual, please like, comment and subscribe. If you help us get the channel bigger, we can get these big guests on and really get them to teach you about what's going on in the industry and share some insights that you're not going to get in a normal interview. We really try and talk to the individual and get to know them better, and hopefully you get to know them better too. So without further ado, I am really proud and honored that Flying High Club has today with them an iconic member of the aviation industry. We're going to delve into all of that with you. I'd like to welcome Willie Walsh onto the podcast. Thank you, Willie, for coming along.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's so many places we could start. Obviously, you had an illustrious career, and it's not by any way over. It sounds like we're almost reading it off here. But currently at IATA as the Director General. I want to start off, first of all, with the World Aviation Festival. Naturally, we're here. The buzz, you can hear it, what's going on here. Why are places like this festival or these conferences so important to our industry?
Well, I think the best part of this, it gives people an opportunity to interact and just reinforces our view that face-to-face business is much better than doing it over Zoom or Teams or whatever it is you use. And I think interacting like this, giving everybody an opportunity to listen to one another, to hear what's being said. And I'm particularly interested in the startups, because the future will be defined by people with new ideas, not necessarily the people who have doing things or have been doing things in the traditional way. So I think it's a great event. Brings quite a lot of people from a wide, variety of different sources, countries, different parts of the industry, and it's great that everybody's together.
Perfect. So you talk about those startups. I don't know if you had much of a chance to have a walk around before you came to us. What are the kind of innovations and products that you're kind of interested in? Especially now, I think you take more of a holistic view, not necessarily coming from an airline group previously with IAG or as an airline CEO. And now in your role as IATA Director General, what are those products and innovations that you're really interested in?
Well, I think everybody's looking at AI now. We see AI, everybody talks about it. What we're trying to understand is, so how will it make a difference, and a positive difference to our industry? And I think there's a lot of opportunity there. I don't know if you listen to the recent panel discussions, people see opportunities in every aspect of the business. So looking at startups who are focused on AI is really interesting. Yeah, and I think the other area is sustainability. Because sustainability, for me, it is an existential issue. We as an industry either address our environmental performance and focus on the transition to net zero, or we're not going to have an industry in 2050. So getting new ideas, new technologies, more and more discussion around what it is we can do to accelerate the transition to net zero, I think is very important.
Makes sense. Okay, brilliant. And then if I move on to IATA, I think, this strong CEO battling for the airlines, now moving to a place where you are battling on behalf of all these airlines now. I know you're a big fan of regulation and challenging that regulation. What are the strategies currently at IATA that you're really focused on and getting your teams to really focus on? Because if I be really honest, I think previously you always think as IATA it's a helpful tool, but how do we actually get action going? Yeah. What are you focusing on currently at IATA in terms of changing that?
Well, I think if you look at legacy IATA, which we still do today, and that's facilitate payments in the system. So about $500 billion flows through IATA from travel agents to airlines, and that's a function that's provided to the industry at zero cost. So that was, if you like, one of the fundamentals IATA existed, was to enable the industry to function like that. So that continues to be very important. But the areas we're really focused on now are issues like sustainability, because we have to be in a position to argue on behalf of the industry to ensure that regulators and politicians understand what it is the industry can do and is doing, and to push back on some of the more extreme measures that some governments are considering, like additional taxation or suppression of demand, or trying to stop people flying, like this concept of moving everybody away to the train in Europe, which is nonsense. Yeah. It's just not going to work. Yeah. Train travel is a very important part of our transport infrastructure, but it cannot provide a widespread alternative, even in Europe, where there's a significant rail network. There's practically no rail network in the US, when you consider the geography of that country. I was in India. So making sure recently, and rail and road is not an option there. So making sure that people understand the overall global view of aviation and what it can be done, and particularly in relation to sustainability, is very important. Yeah. And then helping to defend the industry where we see monopoly suppliers, typically airports, air navigation suppliers, increasing their charges without justification, acting as monopolies rather than part of a commercial network to ensure that this wider industry can continue to function. So there's a lot of issues that we're focused on, but the biggest one is sustainability and the transition to net zero.
Absolutely, and I think we'll touch on that as well, because as you say, we need to bring everyone in the same direction. I think first of all, everyone needs to understand that this is a problem. Yep. We're still in that phase still, believe it or not. I don't know, as much as we talk about sustainability, people are still acknowledging that if we don't, as you said, really amply put it, if we don't address it now, there won't be an industry.
Yeah, and I firmly believe that is the case. We have to recognize, though, although we're a small part of CO2 emissions today, and that's just focusing on the CO2, ignoring the non-CO2, that as other industries decarbonize, where they have easier options, our contribution to CO2 is going to significantly increase, and that's not going to be acceptable. Consumers aren't going to accept that, governments aren't going to accept that, and therefore we as an industry have to get ahead of that and make sure that we're taking measures now so that we can avoid the more extreme measures that some people might think appropriate.
Yeah. So when we're now talking about, we talked about elements that you're focusing on IATA. Now, if I tap into that mind of yours from being a pilot, from being on the other side with the trade unions as well, and as you've come through your career at British Airways, Aer Lingus, what do you describe as the current prospects or the future prospects of this industry right now? So yes, we've talked about some of the challenges if we don't address them, but kind of state of affairs right now. How do you feel, because you now are a unique place now where I think you get more of a view of where the industry is sitting. I'm really fascinated, and I think I'm saying it because a lot of our viewers, what we're trying to encourage is people to see the opportunities in this industry.
Well, I think it's a fantastic industry. I've had a fantastic career. I've been very fortunate. Started as a pilot, then transitioned into management, and now, I've run airlines. I've run an airline group, and now I'm running the airline industry body. And I think it demonstrates that you can do just about anything in this industry. And the future, I think, is positive as well. Now, yes, there will be challenges, but it's actually one of the most exciting things about our industry is that we do face challenges. It's not boring. In fact, it's quite exciting. Sometimes, it is like a roller coaster that you prefer not to be on. A quiet, calm day might be nice. But if you're looking for a challenge, if you're looking for excitement, if you're looking for something that isn't routine day in, day out, you cannot get a better industry. And it covers everything. Every industry you can think of can be found in the airline industry. We talk about environmental issues. We have environmental experts within the industry. Banking, you've got legal, you've got technical, you've got operational, you've got customer. It gives you so many opportunities, and I think the future remains very, very exciting.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I remember I was going to leave the industry when I was around 22. Similar thing, frustration about trying to make progress. And it was the same advice I got. It was actually a reminder of if you want to work in banking, there is an opportunity to work alongside the banking industry, the financial industry. At the time in our offices, we had a salon. He said, you want to be a hairdresser? You could be a hairdresser while working in this industry, or you could buy oil.
You won't get much money from me.
But the thing was, as you said, there's so much variety and so much application. And I think, as you said earlier, even here, we're seeing the startups that are making us think about our processes in a way we never thought about before, actually, and saying, actually, well, we can apply some of this logic into this industry as well. So, you've heard it from the man himself. We're in a good state of health, and I think you're absolutely right about the challenges. I won't put you on the spot, but I remember joining as a cabin crew manager. My second day was being advised that the airline we were both at, that there was industrial action on the horizon, and I was like, this is my second day as a manager. What does that mean? It means a lot of annoyed people.
But this is part of life, And as I said, that's why the industry that we're in, the airline industry, is exciting. Now, as I said, sometimes you prefer to avoid all of these issues. But other times it's inevitable, and you've just got to manage through that. But it is exciting, and it's rewarding.
Absolutely. No, fantastic. Thank you for that. Just looking back at where you were before, we briefly mentioned IAG. A super consolidation of airlines, some great work going on there. How do you think the guys are faring at the moment?
I think they're doing a great job. Luis Gallego, who succeeded me, fantastic guy. He was in Welling when I joined IAG, and we took him out of Welling, and he created Iberia Express, and then from that put him into run Iberia, and now he's running IAG. He's an airline person, technical background. I think he's doing a great job. I stay in touch with him. We get together, we have a cup of coffee, we have a pint of beer every now and then, and I can sympathise with the frustrations that he's facing, given that I used to face a lot of them. But he's doing a great job.
Fantastic. So we move on. Actually, we talk about careers, and actually, what you've just said there would be music to the ears of any budding, whether you're joining the industry or a middle manager looking to get into senior management. We're not talking specifically about Luis there, but you're talking about finding that talent. And actually, there's a great demonstration of that development all the way through to running, what is IAG today. How does that happen? What are you looking for as a person looking to develop the next generation? What are those skills that our listeners can be listening for? What are those nuggets that they should be developing?
Yeah, for me, it's always been around aptitude, and attitude. So when you recruit somebody, and I used to do a lot of recruiting pilots when I was in flight operations management role in Aer Lingus. You look at the person, and we used to say we're recruiting future captains, and you sort of see, can this person become a leader in an aircraft in a few years' time? So do they have the ability to interact? Do they have the right attitude that you want to see? Are they going to be a good team member? Do they have the aptitude to change and to learn? My view is there are great people out there. It's not all about educational requirements. Often we use the educational standard just as a filter, but it's not all about that. You can have people with fantastic educational results, but don't know how to interact in a team. Don't know how to change, can't quickly modify their behavior to deal with a crisis environment. So, yes, education is important, but I used to say to people joining BA, particularly when we'd recruit graduates from university, my view is that every single one of those graduates should aspire to be the CEO. That there was nothing to prevent them taking my job when I was there. Nothing to prevent them. They just needed the right attitude, the right aptitude, and the right commitment. And this, again, is a great thing about the airline industry. So I start as a trainee pilot. I finish up as the CEO of the airline, and in between I did a lot of other jobs in the airline. So it is a fantastic industry, and if you have the right the desire to progress, then quite honestly you can go anywhere. I'm not the brightest person. My educational results aren't the best that's ever been out there. But I wanted to succeed. I wanted to expand my knowledge. I wanted to expand my contribution, and I believed that there were things that I could do. And I was excited about, different challenges. You know, I was excited about changing from being a full-time pilot to a full-time manager, because I found that actually that transition to be a challenge and the challenge to be rewarding. So, you know, for me, have the right attitude and have the aptitude, and you can go anywhere you want to be.
That's fantastic advice, and as you say, rising to those challenges is where you're going to see the growth as well. So that's really good. And when I talk about challenges, actually, and I think it's kind of become the melody of this podcast here, as you've said. You know, one thing that gets thrown a lot at today's generation is maybe a lack of resilience. I mean, yourself, if you look at your career, you've had to demonstrate a lot of resilience. And I think we can talk about the challenges of turning around airlines and you know, obviously the shareholders on your back, which will have its own pressures. But a lot of it's been people-centric, right? You know, where people are just not happy with the way the decisions, as you say, and managing change and having to deal with that change. How do you think that resilience has developed in you? You know, because I guess for me, I'm being really selfish here, how I can pluck something out of this, because there must have required an incredible amount of resilience. And looking back, actually, you may turn around and say, well, you know, you just have to get on with it. But I'm really keen to understand, if we break that down, you know, how you develop that.
It's an interesting one, because I think it develops in you. You know, I don't think you start off with it. I think it's something that develops within you, and your resilience grows from experience and from, you know, succeeding or indeed failing. And I think this is the fascinating thing. This idea of failing is something that people should embrace. Failure, it's frightening, yeah, but I tell you, you learn so much if you fail. And I've failed, you know, I've done things and I've failed. But if you can learn from the mistakes that you make, and better still, if you can learn from the mistakes others make, that helps. You know, that's hugely important.
Yeah.
I see some great people with, I think, huge potential, but they just fear making a mistake. And they're never going to really understand their full potential until they've experienced, you know, a failure.
Absolutely.
And grow out of that failure, learn from that.
Do you think that's more of a cultural problem? Because I think, like, for example, the US, they're great at it. You know, it feels like there is a safe space to fail. You know, I think, you know, working in the UK, it's always like, man, I mean, I'll be honest, you know, I think the myth before the man would always precede. I think, you know, what you were doing as a leader, pushing the organization forward, you really wanted to support that, but you felt like if I screwed it up.
No, and again, that is more myth than reality. You know, and that's why I think it's important that leaders speak about the times that they failed. Now, you know, don't go out there and fail every day. Don't, you know, the challenge is to, you know, if you make a mistake, to learn from it.
Yes.
And to let others learn from it. And don't keep making the same mistake. That's not going to work. I don't see it. I don't, yes, culturally it's probably more acceptable in certain parts of the world than in other. But in all of the organizations I've worked in, you know, the idea that if you failed, you were out, didn't exist. The belief in the minds of some people, the myth that if you failed, you're out, did exist. And it's sort of trying to address that, to give people the confidence of being able to do something, to try, you know, not to be reckless, but to try. And, you know, if you don't succeed, to understand why you didn't, and to learn from that, and, you know, as I said, let others learn from that.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of this is experience-based learning, right? And it's like you said, it's about making sure you learn from those mistakes. We're all human.
We're human, and we make mistakes. And the idea that you're never going to make a mistake is a fallacy. You know, so don't live in fear of it. Don't go out there. Don't be reckless. You know. So if you're taking decisions, take measured decisions, take informed decisions, and sometimes the environment will force you to take decisions much faster than you want. So when I took over as the CEO of Aer Lingus, back just after the tragic events of 9/11, we were forced into taking decisions quickly, because if we didn't, we were out of business. So you know, that really, I think, does help to. You know, to fully stretch somebody when you're being forced, when it is almost do or die. And, you know, there are some people who just can't survive in that environment, so they sit back and let what's going to happen to them, rather than trying to influence what's going to happen to them.
No, makes sense. Listen, this we're going to have to get you on. We're going to have to try and get you to commit to coming back sometime, so we could do a much more extended conversation. But just moving on to, again, about your career. If I could ask you, and I'm sure there's many, so we might have to think about them, but your proudest moment in your career thus far?
I'll be honest, I don't really think about that because, I look back and I've enjoyed every minute of it. I spent 25 years in Aer Lingus. I loved every minute of it. And yes, I went through some terrible times there. So, I can't really pick on one issue. If you force me to, I'd probably say turning the failure of the opening of T5 into the success of T5 that it became. Because it actually forced us to aim for something even higher than we'd been aiming for. But there's no denying the opening day at T5 was a disaster.
Yes.
So that was probably the lowest point. When I then looked back on that several years later and saw what T5 had become, I was proud of turning that failure into a success. But I loved every minute of it.
Yeah, and it epitomizes the story earlier about, like you said, learning from those mistakes, and actually it's renowned as one of those top airports around the world, in terms of terminal operations. And again, I'd love to get the time to delve into those stories. I'm sure there's some, I know there's some stories.
There are a lot of stories behind that one,
Absolutely. Okay, and then going back to our viewers, what would be your best piece of advice for those, what would be the best piece of advice that you've ever been given? Because I think everyone looks at you now, but actually along the way, I'm sure there's been nuggets along the way.
Yeah, it's probably not going to come as a surprise, but it's not so much a piece of advice, but it was a quote I saw that really did inspire me. And I saw this back in probably the 70s, and it's from George Bernard Shaw, and it says, "The reasonable man adapts himself to the world. The unreasonable one persists in trying to adapt the world to himself. Therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable man." And I remember reading that, and people can look up the quote rather than trying to remember what I've just said. But this idea of being unreasonable, and it is about challenging. You can have an easy life, just accept what's coming your way, or you can ask the question, why are we doing this? And I've always told people, if the answer you hear to why are we doing this is, well, that's the way we've always done it, then what you're doing is wrong. So there are times to be unreasonable, to challenge, to say, no, I don't accept that. No, I don't think that's right. No, I don't want to do it that way. I think there's a better way of doing it. And that's why, for me, progress is important. And change. I love change. Change to me is a real positive. If we as an industry don't change or didn't change, we'd be dead. So, if you want to progress all the time, just ask yourself, is what I'm doing what everybody would do? Or is there somebody out there who would say, hang on a second, this is crazy, why are we doing this? And progress, I think, does depend on some unreasonable people out there challenging the way we do things.
No, it's a very well put, actually, you're right. And again, it starts to explain a lot around everything.
Why I am, who I am. Yeah. And the other thing is, it is the case, you have to be yourself. You have to be yourself. I've seen people try to mimic other people that they admire. It's very difficult to do that, because when you come under pressure, you will revert to your natural self.
Exactly.
What the advice I give to people is, look at people you admire and try and build in parts of what it is you admire into your own way of operating. Don't try and be them, because you can't be them. You've got to be yourself. But that doesn't mean you can't change the way you are. But that's got to be gradual, and you've got to be comfortable with it. But just be yourself.
And then talking about change, how do you ensure people come on that journey with you? Because, as you say, being such a, I would say, a change merchant, that kind of man that absolutely believes, and for the right reasons, that change needs to happen, it's very easy for you to already get there. And then bringing those people along, because, like you said, the idea's in your head, you're already implementing it.
Yeah, but not everybody will embrace it. Yes. And that's the thing. I think we spend far too much time and effort on the people that will never change, rather than trying to encourage the people that are open to change. So you have, if you like, three groups. You probably have more. But you have the people who straight away embrace it. Yeah, I like this. I want to do this. You've got the people who go, I'm not so sure about this. And then you got the people that say, this isn't going to work, I'm not going to change. Forget about the people that say I'm not going to change. Forget about them. They typically tend to be a very small minority, often a very loud small minority. But the people you focus on are the people who are open to change, and the people who are embracing the change, and work with them. And then, the small vocal minority will become smaller and less vocal because everybody else will be moving. So change for me is important, but you have to recognize that not everybody's comfortable with it. It can be frightening for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And we have to recognize that, and you've got to try and bring them along with you gradually. But don't waste all of your time on the people who you know are never going to change. You know, work with the people who are scared about the change, but you know, have the possibility of embracing it and coming with you.
Perfect. Okay, look, we are rapidly running out of time, and I know you've got a busy schedule as well. So we're going to end with, we have a segment called the Quick Fire Rounds. Yep. We'll just ask you some industry-related questions, one-word answers, sometimes a few more. We'll try and get as many as we can done in a minute. It's supposed to be light-hearted, so hopefully we'll get to learn a bit more about you as well on the spot. Okay. Willie, favourite aircraft type?
737, Boeing
and why?
737. It's the one I started on, it's the one I flew, and I just love it.
Perfect. Okay. Favorite airport?
Probably, actually, lots of them, but I like Geneva because I'm now living there. I think it works very well. But probably the best is Singapore.
Yeah, it's a popular one with our guests. They normally talk about Changi as well. Aisle or window?
Aisle.
Okay. Chicken or beef?
Chicken.
One item you can't travel without?
My mobile phone.
Strangest in-flight experience you've ever had? That we can share on here.
Yeah, lots I could. I met Eric Clapton on a flight once, and he came over to me and he said, "You're Willie Walsh," and I said, "Yeah." He said, "I've always wanted to meet you," and I turned around and said, "Sorry, who are you?" I'd waited all my life to say that to a celebrity. So, and he looked at me and then he started laughing. He knew I was joking.
Perfect. Okay. Dream destination that you haven't visited yet?
Somewhere in Indonesia, Bali.
Okay, nice. Okay. Your earliest aviation memory?
My first flight, which was between Dublin and London Heathrow back in 1979. 1st of October 1979.
Wow, there we go. Clearly had an impression on you.
It did.
Things that inspire you most about the aviation industry?
People.
Things that you hate most about the aviation
People.
Okay. Worst aviation experience?
Haven't had one yet. All pretty good, to be honest with you.
Okay. All right. And one historical aviation event that you wish you would have witnessed?
The first flight of Concorde.
Amazing. Okay. Well, look, that's the end of our round. I hope you found that quite interesting. I mean, I'm sure our viewers did, because there's some real nice, interesting bits to learn about you there. But again, just want to say thank you very much for taking the time out to be here with us at the World Aviation Festival and on the Flying High Club podcast. Like I said, we'd love to have you back again, and I'm sure we could learn a lot more. And there's probably some really amazing stories that we can share together.
Don't take advice from me.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Perfect.